Heather, hi. It's great to see you. And would you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Heather Crank, I should say my last name, and I'm a motion designer, graphic designer, artist, and I'm living in Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon, yes. And you just told me some pretty crazy story about Ben last night, but we'll save that for the news sources and wherever they may travel. Uh, but I'm going to start our discussion. You've been embraced by Supernova, dating back to 2017 when we showcased the music video Telegraphing. And then in 2018, you took up our invitation to create a work for our Dynamite, then new LED screen at 16th and Arapahoe. And that was alongside 30 other sensational artists. And then last year, you submitted a more personal work called Satellite that ended up in our Director's Choice program. And that was also alongside some of the most phenomenal works of the year. So these are all reasons, besides many others, that I've asked you to participate in this year's commission program for Nightlights Denver. And that's a new video mapping component that has emerged here as an ongoing beacon for animation as public art. And of course, my everything with Denver Digerati started as focusing on digital animation as public art. So it's great to have you within that category this year. So there's potentially a lot of starting points for this discussion, but let's just maybe begin with your overall awareness of Supernova and how that relates to the time you spent here in Denver.
Oh, wow. So Supernova, I actually found you by accident.
Really?
Yeah, I've known you for a long time.
Plus gallery, yeah.
Plus gallery, and I've always loved how you curated work. Always, your gallery was my favorite gallery. And I remember when you started kind of showing, they were like JPEGs of three-dimensional work done on a computer, and I can't remember the artist. Amazing artist.
I'm trying to think back on that. What was that?
Um,
Was that Alex McLeod?
it was.
Yep.
It was. And I remember just mesmerized. I kept thinking, oh my God, I have to get into 3D. I have to get into 3D. And then
I felt the same way seeing his work.
yeah, I mean, the depth and the intricacy in the worlds that were being created, it's gorgeous. I mean, stunning. And then I lived in Denver for 9 years, been a huge fan of the art scene and of course animation, and then I moved to Bend and I accidentally found Supernova, and I didn't know it was you at first, and I randomly applied. And
Accidentally find Supernova. To me, it's I never know how anybody finds Supernova.
it was pure accident. I was just cruising around submissions, call for submissions, and I saw it and I went, wow, that's in Denver? That's cool. And so I applied, and it's one of those things, like, of course, as soon as you leave, all the cool stuff happens. But I also think you've always kind of been a forward thinker and kind of on the precipice of what's coming, where things are going. And when Denver gentrified, right as I was leaving, and a lot of the galleries were going under, and there was a lot of suffering from the art community, you were already 4 steps ahead. So I wasn't surprised it was you.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I wouldn't look at it as 4 steps ahead. I would look at it as, oh my God, I was lucky that something fell in my lap.
Well, honestly, I think things fall in your lap because you've set up a structure and a pattern for that to happen. If you, to me anyway, things generally aren't that random. Like, if I look back 5 years on things, there were a lot of choices that led up to what's occurring right now. And whether I'm conscious of it or not conscious of it, I've set something in motion. And I think you, because you're so driven and such a champion of the arts, had already set something in motion. So it's easier for you to just pivot. So
Yeah,
Okay.
now I always say I set something in motion with having no idea like where that motion is going, but feeling like the intuition of energy and even maybe just thriving on that energy if it's working. And you know, I assume that most people are like that, although when it comes to knowing maybe when to stop or how to like bring on somebody to steer the rudder. I sometimes that's a problem of mine. Although this year within Denver Digerati, we have a great team formed around the project, and I would look at that and say I'm so fortunate to have that, and maybe it makes sense at this time because it's just a great experiment and something that has blossomed into
Mhm.
a field that I'm so deeply passionate about, and probably always have been because of the intersection within video and
Yes.
motion art and all those elements that have been in my past, and I believe those are in your past as well. Tell me about some of your earlier experiences with doing motion art as a graphic designer.
So, um, so a long time ago, I started off as a performance artist, um, and then I was starving, so I had to educate myself. So I went to design school as a way to kind of take the fine art side of myself and bring it into something that was storytelling, time-based media, the whole thing. So to me, motion is very similar to choreography, is very similar to performance. Um, and I love film. So it was kind of when I discovered motion, marrying all that together. And I think it was my last year in school, I uh, had a teacher who was really championing me to enter the Adobe Awards, and I wasn't going to do it because I thought, I had no confidence. And he would pass me in the hall and say, enter it. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. And he called Adobe, had one of their people come and sit with me and help me fill out the application.
Wow, Adobe could do that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I did. And then I went on a vacation. I was out in Napa, totally dropped it, came home, and there was a call that I had won the Adobe Awards.
Wow.
And I remember playing that message. It was like a movie, like 6 times. And they flew me out to New York. I had my work in the Guggenheim. It was crazy. It was surreal. I met Sagmeister. He was presenting. I was just
Wow.
like, whatever. Like,
Starstruck in a way.
yeah, starstruck. Have you ever had one of those experiences where when it's happening, time moves really slow and it's almost like you're not really there, but you're there and it doesn't seem real?
I'm sure I have in my life, but more lately, I feel like time is accelerating. No,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
it was amazing. And I remember they had the presentation. As I was walking out, Jonathan Wells at that time, who was he created ResFest, which was a big experimental animation program in the Bay Area, handed me his card and said, I want to show your film. Please send me your information. And I had no idea who he was. So I didn't, it was again one of those moments where I could kick myself because I didn't understand how big that was.
Wow.
And so my work was in ResFest and it showed around the world. And then I went to go see it. It was filming. They were showing the festival at the Presidio in San Francisco, and I didn't expect this, but right before he showed it, he called me down to the stage to talk. He put me on the spot. There were so many people. Anyway, it was amazing. It was incredible. It was really intense. And then after that happened, it was like dead. Like my career just nosedived. It was horrible. There was a long, terrible period of nothing. And
Well, you're one of the few people that I actually know that knows of Res and Res Fest, and that was for me that was the holy grail. I thrived on it, and I to this day I say if there's one reason why I'm doing what I'm doing here, I can bring it back to Res and Res Fest, and then I'll never forget the day that they disappeared. And the day they disappeared seemed to be the same time that maybe YouTube emerged and
Yeah,
Vimeo,
yeah,
and the whole online platforms kind of took away something that was very special for you and for me.
yeah,
For me it was just simply a source of pleasure and entertainment, but it was something that when it left it removed this huge place that was part of my life.
yeah.
And maybe I'm like constantly trying to refill that through Supernova, but it's also different, because I understand the times have evolved from a from an artist standpoint, though. Yeah, the world changed quite a bit, and there's so many things that can be said about the challenges that everybody faces along the way. So, if you're a young artist today, you don't have any of that. You just have like what's at hand and how it functions. And sometimes I don't think things function the way they should these days. But that's another topic.
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah.
So let's talk about telegraphing. I wasn't really familiar with you as an artist or your work so much when you submitted that, and I loved every bit of it. So many people that I've personally shown it to think it's one of the best works that's on, the Supernova video channel, and I just go, yeah, it's a really great work. So tell me a little bit about that experience creating that.
So a good friend of mine, David Obachowski, who actually just moved back to Denver, has several bands. One is really well known called Goes Cube, originally out of New York. And so he started a new band called Publicis UK. And he asked me if I would do a video for their new release. And I said, of course. Um, and it's really great working with people like that who are artists because he gives me total free reign. He kind of gives me like a loose idea, and I would submit boards to him just to make sure the whole band had to vote and they were good. Um, so it's just a music video for their new release. And it went across the interwebs. I got a lot of interesting comments about how trippy.
A lot of likes, a lot of interesting comments. Yeah, sure, sure.
But how I like to work with that kind of stuff is I like to use the lyrics, not that you can really hear them in particular music genres, but they're there and they have a feeling. And I like to use words in music and poetry and things to kind of fuel the storyline. I like to weave in the little stories. Otherwise, I feel like I don't have anything to hook onto. I'm a visual person, but I'm also a story driven person.
Sure. Well, what from a standpoint of that as a project, as a music video, uh,
Mm-hmm.
did it make you want to do more music videos, or is it something? Yeah, like you know, it felt like a great calling card for that arena to me.
Yeah. Well, it for me. It's all those things coming together. It's you've got music and storytelling, and it's a type of choreography. I'm very comfortable in that genre.
Sure,
Very, very
sure.
comfortable. Yeah.
Well, so let's go back to last year with Satellite, and I believe that's a more personal project and something that tell me a little bit about the development of that work.
So a lot of work I create, personal work. it comes from reoccurring dreams that I have, and I have this very crazy dream life.
We
And
all do right now. Oh my God.
same dreams going right now. Um, I get poetry in my dreams. I wake up and I write things down. I'll think of things before I go to bed. I'll resolve them in my dream and wake up and make it. I feel like I have this very active subconscious that talks to me all the time. So with satellite, that was directly related. It was a little bit of a comment on some grief I was going through at the time, as well as I had this incredible dream and I was given this poem. And so again, it's that word based kind of storytelling thing. And you saw what I saw.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the words are the poems that what I heard that was being spoken in my dream is driving the piece.
Well, to me, it was, I felt like it was the opposite of telegraphing a lot of ways.
Total opposite.
But that's, I love that. And that, I was just talking to Sean Capone, and we were talking about the two sides of Sean Capone. And boy, it was just like, amazing to, like think that artists don't have to be limited by one thing or another.
Oh
And,
no.
creative work can take you in so many different directions. So the current direction, which I would love to talk a little bit about, is Unconquerable, which
Mm-hmm.
is simply one of the most riveting works received for Nightlights Denver, which is really saying a lot because we have just an amazing array of animations set to be unleashed for that project in just a few weeks. And I'm really excited about that. And what I want to just, maybe find out about is your approach to that particular opportunity and how it just relates overall to your work in digital composition and art. Your proposal to me was gripping and relevant. You started with the theme is the humanity and suffering and rising up against all odds. And from there, it really struck me as something that was very deep and compelling. So tell me, how did that evolve, and what do you want to say about Unconquerable?
So I was thinking a lot about the protests, what's happening right now in the political climate. There's the pandemic. There's so much suffering on every level, and I personally am a little bit overwhelmed by the suffering I see. This certain type of suffering really makes me crazy. I have this hypersensitive empathy, and I really wanted when you approached me with this project, and I was thinking about the clock tower. I was thinking about where it's located. I was thinking about when this was going to show. I really wanted to address the suffering that people are going through, the heartbreak, the pain, the darkness, the torment, the loss of hope. And then I wanted to end and kind of bring them up into what I feel like is the unconquerable part of themselves. I feel like we all have a lot of resilience. I think everyone is really exhausted right now. Um,
Yes.
so exhausted, so much pain, uh, and like this level of confusion. And so I wanted to give people something. I wanted to put something out there and say, I'm addressing this. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not saying all this is not existing. I'm going to show it to you. And then I'm going to flip it. I'm going to show you something else that I think is inside everybody. So my hope is when people walk past that, I'm hoping that they'll just take a minute, watch it, and that it will lift them up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the transition from the darkness to the light. And to me that, all the works that we've received so far are very different. And I still haven't revealed to anybody who the slate of artists is, because it's like I want to hold this tight. That's coming out very soon, but your work really does have this, what I would call, these two strong narrative sections that are obviously about the times, but they're all also about all times, and to me that's very relevant.
Yeah, I used there's this wonderful poem called Invictus, and it's one of my favorite poems of all time, and I use it for myself when things are very bleak and difficult. And one of the lines in that poem is the unconquerable soul, and that was kind of the driving force. And I use a little bit of the language in the piece. I start with setting it up kind of with using that poem to kind of communicate some of the darkness, and then I kind of push it off into abstract land, because how are you going to show an unconquerable soul? You can't. You know.
Well, that's, it's interesting, just the idea of unconquerable soul, because you can't have an unconquerable soul without having a conquerable soul. And
Yeah.
to me, that's humanity. There's basically there's two options, I guess.
Well, I think all that contradiction exists in everybody. Those two opposites all the time, and they're always kind of fighting it out. And we have to make decisions and choices about which part of ourselves is going to be leading our lives, our choices, our decisions. I think I know for myself, I go back and forth between those two parts of my personality. I hope that the happier, lighter one will win out, but sometimes I just am going to be on the floor,
Yeah,
layering
well,
out.
you
Things. I'm human, and humans are flawed. So I think it's perfectly normal and natural to have that contradiction. But I think because we have those two parts of ourselves, we can build strength on the idea of we have the potential to rise and to come up if we
sure.
choose.
Yeah, and as an artist, I think that all artists have that potential to draw from deep within, and understand that everything's momentary, and it really is in your soul how you move forward. I'll never forget the month that I opened up a gallery in Denver back in 2001. And this was the month before September 11th happened.
Oh my
And,
God.
for me, it was, even in comparison to now, it was the bleakest moment I think I've ever experienced. And that was because I had put everything into this idea that was basically stupid and naive from the get-go. But it seemed like the right thing to do, and then this tragedy happens, and I'll never forget, like, just lying on the bed all day going, everything that I sought is now going to dissolve, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it was a really terrible feeling, and maybe it wasn't all day. I think after a few hours I picked up, and I went to this space that nobody had really even been into yet, and I created a work of art that for me transcended that moment and allowed me to get through it, and just allowed me to have some sort of anchor to grasp onto. And that was really important. I don't even like, the impulse to do that was almost an automatic switch. And I've not had that switch again necessarily in my life, but I think back on that in relationship to these current times, and say that experience prepared me for today, but nothing can prepare you for what's really what we're all experiencing, what may or may not be on the horizon. There's just so much unknown that it's kind of crazy, but you have to keep pushing through.
Yeah. And I also think that's art's strength, is that it really um, artists are comfortable with the unknown. That's part of it. And we use art as a way to kind of express and navigate that. And we kind of live in that um, in between weird place that most people spend their time avoiding.
Well, there's God. I mean, geez, to be an artist, I always say I am so glad that I'm not an artist, even though I've done artwork before. But I really like, to me, the reason why I say that is that it is such a special position, and I don't believe that I'm that I'm capable of being what a true artist is. And people tell me, "Oh, you're wrong, you're wrong." And I just go, "No, it's special." And what motivates me is understanding and recognizing what is pure, what is art, and embracing it. And that's why I love curating. That's why I love this project so much. And within you, I love how you said that you're such an empathetic person. I wanted to ask you about what's happening with Ben Design this year, because I had this amazing experience after Supernova last year that just really, it made me understand you so much better, and your love and embrace of other artists and creatives, and trying to bring that to the world. You seem like you're always trying to bring something good into life.
Oh, geez, thank you, Ivar. Well, Ben Design, it's a very intimate conference. It's, I think the Tower Theater holds 350 people, maybe 400. And it's sort of becoming like the Telluride of Oregon. And this year, of course, we can't have it in person. So we're moving into a digital format, which, for a conference, I'm sure you understand this, a little bit of a challenge. But we're doing it anyway. And we're getting ready to launch any day now.
Oh
It's
wow.
we're yeah, we're
You're a
right
little ahead of us.
there. We've been working on this since March.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot to rehearsals and the tech and everything. So we're just about to launch. We have some amazing speakers lined up. I'm very excited, very excited. Um, I love community. I love giving back. I'm a very empathetic person. I love to champion other creatives. I live for creativity and art. Um, and Ben Design, I'm incredibly grateful to Renee Mitchell, Martha Murray, who I stalked when I moved here,
Yes.
who put me on the programming committee. Um, it gives me also an opportunity to bring people like you out here who I don't feel like maybe have had enough exposure to the amazing things they're doing, and put a spotlight on you. And that's a really privileged position, and I'm incredibly grateful to be able to do that. And I just get tremendous joy from bringing people together, the community together, and giving back to creatives and designers and artists, because they give so much all the time and often for nothing. So
Yeah.
it's sort of my opportunity.
Well, it's interesting that just to think about, that in-person experience. And for me, that's going to be missing in some ways from Supernova this year, although we can still have a live event. I at this point already have at least two artists that are showing up that I haven't met before, maybe a third, and I go, maybe there's going to be more. But what takes place in those intimate settings is so valuable, and it's something that really kind of goes beyond words. And as we all adapt, this conversation is part of that, adapting to something that's, I look at it as, you could have always done these great interviews. Maybe Zoom's been around for a while. I didn't know about it until just this year. But you go that's the wonderful thing about evolution, is that we do adapt to it, and we always try to create more value. And I see these conversations as something that can bring the human element back. into
Oh,
something that everybody, is probably going to be participating from at home.
yeah.
Hopefully we'll all move past that, because to me, Ben was that was a thrill.
Oh, thanks, Ivar. It was great to have you out here and to see you and Peter Burr together was, I mean, that was incredible. How
I
wonderful.
if I were to think of my top 5 highlights in my life, at least 3 of them include Peter Burr being there. So
Peter Burr. Okay, for those people, I just going to say it. So those people who don't know who Peter Burr is, I was introduced to him many years ago through Monkey Town. I didn't know who he was. His piece came up, and I just was. My immediate reaction was, "Who is that? Oh my God! Brilliant animator, brilliant artist."
absolutely, he's always been a pioneer in the field, and somebody who's just very endearing. And it's interesting. Yeah, I've always had that response to his work, but I believe he works in Unity software.
Yeah.
And this year for Supernova, we just confirmed a relationship with Unity. So we're going to be having a Unity boot camp throughout the month of
Wow.
September. We're going to have some uh, uh, additional discussions framing Unity and how artists can use it. The whole idea is that gaming engines seem to be dominating everything in various ways, but these platforms can be used by digital animators towards ends that I think are phenomenal, and really are part of the core of this project. So I'm really excited about that. And every time I think about it, I go, yeah, Peter uses Unity. I mean, there's so much software out there, but I just go, yeah, like that again,
That's
that
cool.
that makes that connection.
Yeah, that's I think too, like right now there's such a push, especially as things probably for the next couple of years are going to be becoming more and more digital, more and more online, that artists will really start gravitating towards different software.
Well, yeah, that for me. That's a constant topic. It's really at the root of uh, well, it's one of the motivators for continuing the work in Denver Digerati and Supernova in particular, because there's this realization that these tools are ever growing, they're super powerful, that it's that escalation in what you can do just in the last decade that makes them central components to artistic life, and not just artists that are digital artists, but really everybody. And so there, we look at digital natives as the next wave of
Yeah.
artists. And
Yeah.
so, like, again, I'm going to go back to that position of I'm so glad I'm not an artist, because there's so many tools out there now. How do you choose, a program to work in, or some of these programs that just defy my sense of what you can do? You can see my screen. This is Fayez Joffrey. He put this
Uh,
together for Supernova, and I look at it and I go, I have no idea how you did that, man. it's, it's wonderful, and wow, like wow, how can that not be something that youth of today are obviously going to be gravitating towards? So
oh, oh, definitely. And that's part of the intensity of being, if you're in animation digital art, is that it constantly evolves. You have to just be on it and learning. And you could spend a decade in one program and then all of a sudden it's going to shift.
would you say that you have learned some new things in that capacity for the Nightlights Denver Commission? Because to me, I saw some elements that I felt were evolutions in your work, and I just go, yeah, I think I see that across the field, and that's so exciting for me. But how would you express that within this latest piece?
Oh, well, I think I have an idea about something I want to create, and then I'm aware of what I need to learn to create it, and so I just do it. So for that piece, there was some 3D software and some 3D elements I needed to figure out to be able to create certain things on top of what I already know. So I just did it.
You just did it. It's funny. I think about that and I go, I would never be able to just do that.
It depends. How much of a burning desire do you have?
Yeah, that's true. Well, for me, having a creative background and I get to do a lot of creative work within the context of Supernova. I'm reaching a point right now where I'm much happier shedding that work off of
Oh,
me,
yeah.
it's a good feeling. Other than, boy, I love doing certain types of work. I love editing so much and the thrill of that, and but you got to give this stuff to the next generation, and or
Yeah.
the all anybody who's involved in it, because that there is a learning curve that I think is pretty extraordinary. And when you see something compelling, it still is rooted in just art traditions that I think everybody has to learn and
Oh,
grasp
yeah.
before they move on. So
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, if you don't have your basics,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, Heather, it's amazing to have this catch up with you. It's such a different conversation because of our personal level, but I love that, and I think we're really ready to let things loose pretty soon here. It's been a challenging year, even getting to that point where there's anticipation revealing the platform. But you're one of the leads with Nightlights Denver, and it's really just going to be a riveting program across the board. So thanks for participating. Do you
Oh,
have anything else you want to say?
I just want to say I love what you're doing. I love Supernova. I'm so grateful for the platform that you've created for artists. A lot of us right now are out of work and really struggling, and it's so nice to have some place to say something. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, my heart goes out to you and to all artists. Most people don't know also like what everybody else on the other side is going through. And this year, the funding challenge is, it's there. You go, if you believe in it, you push through.
Yeah.
And I see this year as a year that we can really shine. And if we can all get through it, hopefully there's an upside.
Yeah. There's an upside. I know there's an upside.
There's always an upside. Well, you've been wonderful, and it's just really great to catch up. And good luck with everything with Bend as well. Please give your wonderful associates a big hug and hello. Well, you can't give them a hug. Give them a
I
hello.
can't. I'll give him a virtual hug. That's the thing, right? But yeah,
Absolutely,
high
absolutely.
five.
Okay. Well, I will follow up with you a little bit later at some point, and it's great to see you.
Thank you, Ivar.